Hello and welcome back, pals and partners. I have a new pattern here for us to try today. And here I'm showing majority of the materials that we will be using for today. So this is going to be a fabric doll. I decided I wanted to try making a cute little tulle mane and tail. I have some optional supplies in here like these safety eyes or plastic beaded eyes. I don't know what they're technically called. And then some buttons or cotter pin joints. I thought it would be fun to show a new option in attaching the limbs. So make sure you got your supplies, you got a comfy outfit on for sewing. I'm always in pajamas, guilty. Don't forget your beverage, and yeah, let's start. The first way I'm going to be using these wooden and metal washers to joint the legs together. And then the second way is just going to be the one that I mainly use, which is like button joining. This is the one I made earlier. It's super rough. It's the first one I made. So I'm going to show how I use the washers to joint the legs like this. It's very floppy. It won't stand up on its own. But I think it looks so cute when it's like lying down. And another optional item is plastic eyes, plastic safety eyes. I just always embroider my eyes on. I feel like it's just super cute and simple. I'm gonna try using these. I don't know how this is gonna end up looking, but for a horse that is, but I thought it would be fun. It's around the same size, might be a little bit bigger than how this is. So yeah, let's get started. I'm super excited about this pattern. Don't forget to download it in the description below. It should be able to print on a US letter size paper and it'll all fit on one sheet. Once you print it and cut it out, I have these little X's on the parts where you need to poke little holes, and those are just the parts where you're gonna mark where we're gonna add the legs and the cotter pin joints. You can also use those to mark where you wanna do the button joining, or you could just do a regular, like you could just eyeball it. The material I'm using is just a classic Kona cotton in this cute brown color. And then like I said, the mane and tail is going to be tulle. You could also use regular fabric for the mane and tail and kind of do it the same way. I'm not 100% sure how it will come out. I feel like it would fray if you did it the same way, but you could try it if you don't have tulle. Or you could do a yarn mane and tail if you know how to do that as well. But for this one, we're doing tulle because it looks so cute. It looks so dainty. I love it. So I'm going to use a white colored pencil, just like a regular colored pencil, to mark my fabric. I'm going to mark all of my parts where it has those little notches. And then after that, I will cut out each piece with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You don't have to do that for the legs and the ears. As you can see, I'm not going to do that, but I want to make sure that I cut out a 1/4 inch seam allowance for the body pieces and then also for the under gusset, because I like to make sure everything matches up neatly. Once I'm done cutting out my body piece, I go ahead and I make my notches in the areas where I marked, and I also cut out my dart at the top of the head, and I cut kind of just in between the white lines. I don't cut exactly on the white lines. And then I have my point so that when I flip over, I can trace my template on top of the other side. So I kind of match everything up and just repeat the same thing. Technically, you'll only need one piece to have your points marked so that we can base on the mane and tail and whatnot. But because I am showing also how to do the cotter pin jointing, I just want to make sure I'm marking the other side of the body with the eyes for the plastic eye, and then also the leg areas for where the cotter pin is going to go through the body. This one, like I said, I'm doing the buttons, but I'm just showing the process of how it would be when I transfer the template to the fabric. I also forgot to mention that my fabric here is doubled, so when I'm transferring my template onto the fabric, I don't have to make 2 body pieces and 8 legs and 4 ear pieces, because I'm only transferring on 2 ears and I'll get 4 because the fabric is doubled. And then same with the legs, I'm only drawing on 4 legs, but the fabric is doubled, so when I cut it out, I'll get the amount of pieces that I need. For the legs, you want to make sure that you're transferring the template on the fabric with the stretch of the fabric going up and down, so not side to side, if that makes sense. So your selvage of your fabric should be on the top or bottom. You could do it the other way. It just, the legs might look a little bit different. You also want to make sure they're all facing the same direction. So don't make some going up and down and then some going side to side. And I didn't realize that, of course, when I stuff it, they're going to be different lengths given the stretch of the fabric is going in different directions. So you just want to be mindful of that. The ears, I don't stuff the ears, so that doesn't really matter. So whatever fits on your fabric. And then the under gusset is the same thing like how I did the body. So I kind of just trace out the template piece, and then I make sure that I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance when I cut it out. And that one I cut it right out on my marked line there. Those are only the two that I want to make sure that the raw edges match up, like I said, so everything's nice and neat and we can make sure the fabrics all line up nicely. And then as far as the legs go, I just sew everything all on one piece and then cut it out after. Now we'll be cutting out the pieces that we need for the mane and tail. The mane piece measurements are going to be 6 centimeters in width and 20 centimeters in length, and you're going to cut 2 of those. And for the mane, it's going to measure 6 centimeters in width and 40 centimeters in length. Once you have those pieces cut out, for the mane, you'll just fold it in half lengthwise and then just kind of clip it to hold it in place. And then the tail, you'll fold it in half and then you'll fold it in half again. So you do your hamburger fold and you do your hot dog fold, or vice versa. And then you'll just clip those 2 pieces together and kind of bunch them up. And then those will be sewn into the seams. Now we'll go over to the machine and we'll do the gathering stitch for the main part. And I just make my stitch length as big as it will be. So you'll just run a stitch all the way up those raw open edges that we clip together. I make sure I have long thread tails in the beginning and the end to make sure I have enough thread to grab on when I'm pulling the threads tight. Here, since I'm already at the machine, I adjust my stitches back to what the length I want it to be. So I think I use 2 millimeter stitch length for this project. And I sew my legs and I sew my ears. When you're sewing your legs, be sure to take your time and go slow around the curve so you have nice even seams, and when you stuff your project, it's going to look nice and round and smooth and not all kind of bumpy and puckery. After you sew your ears and your legs, you can go ahead and cut out the pieces, making sure that you're leaving about 1/8 of an inch extra seam allowance. Don't cut too close to your seam because you don't want it to rip or fray and then it's going to damage your toy. Then we're going to be taking our stick and straw, or you can use a hemostat. You're going to turn your ears inside out. Make sure before you turn it inside out, you clip the corner of the top of the ear. Not too close to your seam line, but you want to get rid of the bulk so that when you turn it inside out, it's going to give a nice little point. And then you'll slightly fold in your ears curves towards the middle so they have like a little fold in them. Now we're going to take our folded ears and we're going to make a little ear sandwich here in the dart. What you're going to want to do is on the right side of your horse piece, you'll want to make sure that the curve of the ear is facing down and the point of the ear is facing towards the back of the horse. And you'll fold the head over and just match up those raw edges and then clip it shut. Then you just repeat the same process on the other side. To make sure you're putting in the right spot, make sure you use your markings that you made as reference to make sure that the ear placement is proper. Then you just take that to the machine and be sure to back stitch in the beginning and end. When I reach the end, I like to leave my needle in the piece and then I make one more row of stitches going back so everything's nice and secure. And again, since we're at the machine, we're gonna baste on the mane and the tail pieces. So first we have to gather our tulle for the mane. What you wanna do is separate your thread pieces. Mine got a little tangled here. And you'll tug gently on one tail end of the thread, and that should pull your tulle and make a cute little ruffled gather. It's kind of fiddly, so you just want to be patient. If you break your thread, you're going to have to redo it again. So be sure you go slowly. And once you have your gather, you want to make sure that you gather it enough so that it's going to fit in between those marks you made for where the mane should be. So once your gather is nice and neat and it fits in between those notches, you're going to match up your raw edges of your tulle to the raw edges of the fabric, and then you'll just clip everything in place. It is a little tricky because it's a lot of bulk and bunching up with the fabrics, and it can get tricky to see what you're doing. So just go slowly and make sure that you're checking on the other side so that everything is nice and neat and your mane should be in the proper place. Be sure that you're attaching the mane to the right side of the fabric, because again, this is going to be in between the two pieces, the two body pieces. So you want to make sure it's on the right side. And then same thing with the tail. You want to make sure that it's in between the two notches, and you want to place it on the right side of the fabric, just how you did with the mane. And then one thing I forgot to add is that I did pin down my ear. Don't forget that you got an ear in there now, and you don't want to sew it within your basting stitch. So just be sure to fold it downwards away from where your needle is going to be sewing. And if you could pin it, just be careful and remember that it's in there, but you don't want to be sewing down your ear. When I'm adding on the tail, I tuck it in a little bit more just so it fits between my notches. You can kind of just play with it and see what you think will look best. So you can use your best judgment. And I pin it in place, and I just do a simple little basting stitch right along the edge there, making sure that I'm basting it on the outside of where my actual seam is going to be. And for my main piece, I again repeat the same process, but this time I take my time because there's a lot more bulk. The clips kind of get in the way, so I use my little tweezers, my pointy tweezers, to help ease the fabric through the machine better. And being careful that I'm close to the edge, but not too close that I'm gonna miss the fabric, if that makes sense. So again, sewing on the outside of where my actual seam will be. The basting stitch won't be seen, so you don't have to worry about making it perfect, of course. Okay, moving on to the last sewing part. You'll want to match up the F point to the F point, so front and back, F and B. You will match up those under gusset pieces to the body template pieces. And what I focus on really is the body template piece. I don't really pay attention to the template lines that I drew for the under gusset. I just make sure that I'm focusing on the body template line. I make sure that my raw edges are matched up nicely to make sure that my seam allowances are going to be okay. And you'll just really want to make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and end, of course, and that you are just going slowly and making sure that those raw edges are matched up. When you reach the point of the body template, again, because we're using the body template lines, not the under gusset lines, you'll just leave your needle into that point and then pivot and slowly adjusting the under gusset piece. And what can happen is that you're now creating like a three-dimensional piece so that you're going to have extra fabric, and you just want to make sure that you're sewing on a flat surface, you're sewing those edges flat, and that nothing is bulking up or bunching up under the needle where you're going to sew through something that you're not supposed to. So you'll just sew from point to point, making sure that you backstitch at the beginning and the end, and then again obviously making sure that your right pieces are facing together, and you'll repeat that for both sides. Make sure that you leave your opening, your seam opening, and that should be it for the sewing part. When you go to do your second body template piece, your under gusset might not be matched perfectly. So what you'll want to make sure is that your body template pieces match nicely, and you'll match up those notches, and your seams should align that way. And you want to make sure that your seams are right next to each other or very close so that everything is nice and even.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to the computer. Okay, I lied. That wasn't the last sewing part. Your last sewing part is obviously when you sew your body template piece together. So once that under gusset body is done and everything is nice and neat. No, I'm talking to the computer again. Then you're going to want to just sew from the last 2 points on your body template piece. Be sure you tuck in your tail, your ears, and your mane. and keep it out of the way of where the seams would be, especially as you near the front of the head main part. That edge piece can maybe get caught in the seam, so you just want to make sure you kind of fold it back a little bit, and you shall sew along your seam, being sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end, and that should be it for the sewing part. And then we can turn everything inside out and get to stuffing. Now, of course, before we turn everything inside out, we want to make sure that we're trimming down any excess bulk and also clipping our inward and outward curves. If you don't have a pinking shears, you can just use your regular shears and just make notches around the curves. And after that, you are all set to turn your piece inside out. You can either use the straw and stick method, or the hemostats is also super easy. Before turning it inside out and you're trimming your under gusset, you want to make sure that you're trimming each side of the under gusset separately and not having it like folded together. And that's going to prevent you snipping into any seams or any parts that it shouldn't be snipped into. So just be careful when doing the under gusset part, since there's multiple layers. A different kind of jointing method for this, and then I will also show a separate jointing method where we could just do with the buttons, just in case you don't have these on hand or you don't want to wait for them to come into the mail or something. But I'm here making some sets, so I'm gonna need 4 sets of joints. So it's gonna be 2 per leg, so we need 8. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Then we need, same with the washers. This I just ordered from Amazon. I'll have it linked in my description below in case you're interested in purchasing this set from Amazon. These are wood, these are metal, and then I'm just gonna get these little cotter pins. This one you'll only need 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And it comes in a little kit like this. I just got this to try and I really like it. They have a smaller version and a little bit larger wooden version, and one that's kind of in between. What it doesn't come with are pliers, so you're gonna need some pliers. I've already made my holes here on all of my pieces. And what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take a wood piece. I'm gonna take a metal washer, put it right on top. And then I'm gonna take my cotter pin like this, and that's nice and secure. And I'm gonna go from the body into the leg. So I'm gonna start off with the horse's front left leg if we're looking at it with the horse facing us. The seam on the side should be a big enough opening where you can fit it in. And we've already made our small marks inside the side body of the horse. So what I'm just going to do is very carefully push my cotter pin through the hole like that. Okay. And then I shall take my front left leg for the horse, which would be this one, like that. And I'm gonna very, very carefully puncture it through this hole and being sure the pins come out the seam here, like that. And I shall repeat the process. I'm gonna put my wood piece through here. It'll go through the seam. So you're kind of stuffing the wood piece into your leg. And then I'm just gonna put the metal washer right on top, like this. And then now it's ready for us to close the pin using our pliers. So I'm just making sure this is on the inside like that. Okay, there we go. So I'm just making sure I'm holding everything nice and tight. Oops. Nice and tight. There's no fabric in the way. Everything's flush. I got the right leg, obviously. And I'm gonna kind of work through the seam here like this, holding everything nice and flat. I'm gonna take my needle nose pliers, rotate my pin inward all the way down to the bottom, and it naturally tightens up. And then you'll just repeat the same thing on the other side. This one was a little bit careless. I'm trying to keep it all neatly lined up in a little roll like this, all the way down to the bottom, making sure it's super tight. Here I'm just gonna come in and clamp this one if possible. Oh, doesn't look like I can clamp it in, but just gonna try to slide in that edge piece just so it's not too sharp. I don't want any sharp edges in here. So now it's nicely coiled. Everything is nice and tight on there, and it creates like a nice little joint for the leg. And then that's pretty much it. You tuck everything in there and you will just resume your stuffing like normal. I will stuff the leg and then seal this up with the ladder stitch, and continue the same for the other 4. You don't have to put it in this way too. You could also start with inserting it through the leg and then have the coils be on the inside of the horse's body. I just found that this way was a lot easier because we're working with the seam open right like that, and we have easy access for the pliers to twist in there versus us kind of pulling the fabric in like this. I guess you could do it like this too and just work in the seam like that. So whatever you find is easier for what you're doing. Hi, you're currently in the stuffing and it's been about 30 minutes now. I'm almost done stuffing the body. I'm all done stuffing the legs, and then we shall continue our journey and button join the legs. He's almost there. I kind of like it just like this. Moving on to our final step, we're gonna do the other way of adding the legs to the doll, and I'm gonna use the button jointing method. And I always feel like I can never explain this right, and I'm probably overcomplicating everything. I do have other videos on my channel of button jointing doll arms, which is basically the same exact process, but in this instance it's legs for an animal. But it's the same process of threading the needle in and out of the doll through the buttons to make sure everything is secure. So hopefully I explained it right, and I shall see you at the finish line because we're almost done. My thread extra long. So now I have my buttons that I want to use for the front, and then I have my buttons that I want to use for the back legs. So I'm going to start off in the front. I'm starting off, you can barely see my mark there, but I'm starting off where my mark is, towards the front of the mark, going straight through the doll, straight through the body, coming out the front part of this side, and pulling my thread all the way until there's a long tail piece, and I'm not going to pull it all the way through. Okay, then I'm going to find my leg piece here, and I'm going to go through the front part of the marking again. So I'm kind of keeping that marking I made in the middle of my points, making sure my seam is in the back and my toe point is facing forward. I'm going to run that through, get my button, like that, and then now I'm going to work towards the back of the leg, aiming to go straight through. Then I'm going towards the back side of my marking. Again, going straight through, coming out the back side of this marking, which is now not there because it rubbed off. All right, and now I shall repeat the leg on this side. I'm going to find the back side, make sure it's facing the back, make sure the toe is facing the front. And this side, since I came out the back section of my marking, I'm going to go in towards the back section of this marking, come out the back section here, and then repeat the same process with the button. Now I'm going towards the front. So I'm leaving my marking here kind of in the middle, pulling this, making sure it's not twisted. Geez, okay, do not get your thread twisted because it'll ruin the tension. Now I'm on the inside here, and I'm just going to repeat the same process one more time, and then I'm going to come out to the bottom of the button. So I'm going to go a little bit lower now, straight through, and come out a little bit below, lower in the front. And then I'm going to go a little bit lower in the front here. Gonna find my button. Probably should have made it crisscross, but it's too late now and I'm not doing it for the third time. Coming out in the front. I'm gonna be in the front part, a little bit lower. Find my front hole of the button. And then now our button legs are on. So I'm just gonna very carefully pull everything tight. Nice and taut here. I actually don't really like how that looks. So I might redo it. I'm gonna trim my end off, my needle off, and I'm gonna tie it once and tighten everything up. Okay, and now I'm gonna do a double knot. And one more knot just in case. Now I'm gonna bring my threads together. Trim them all to the same length. I'm gonna insert my needle. So I'm gonna gently lift it up and find out where my knot is. I'm gonna insert the needle and then point it towards the back, like that, and it'll come out there. I'm gonna rethread my needle with all of my pieces, like that, and then I'll just pull all these pieces through to hide these tail ends. Trim the ends. And then my front two legs are done. Okay, so I'll just repeat the same process for the back legs. All right, real quick, so I thought I'd just show. So instead, this time of going to the side, I'm going crisscross on my button. So I'm also gonna go crisscross on the next hole. And then come out the same, so a little bit lower than the first hole, like that. And then instead of going to the side here, I'm gonna go a little bit lower than my mark, there. And then repeat the same process on the other side. And then that way it's gonna give me like a little crisscross in the buttons instead of a side to side like that. I think it'll just look better. And if you have to make any adjustments so that it stands up straight, it should be pretty even, but you can kind of just gently shift things around if it's a little uneven, just so she stands up. Okay, the last thing we're gonna do before I run out of sunlight here is add her nose. So I'm just making one knot on a piece of embroidery floss. I'm using light pink because I think it's cute. You can make a line where you think the nose should be. I usually make mine like that. I'm gonna start from the bottom underneath here. Insert my needle. I'm gonna gently pull the knot through the bottom, like that. So the knot's stuck on the inside now. I'm gonna put my needle back down right next to that initial spot. I'm gonna come out to where we want the mark, to where the mark is. Make a loop. I'm gonna put the needle through the loop to kind of catch it up like that. And then from here, I'm gonna insert my needle right back down, right next to that hole that I just came out of, or that the loop came out of. I'm gonna go down to the other side, trying to make it somewhat even. So that's kind of like a chain stitch. And then I'll just repeat the same process for this side. So this side, I'll make the loop. I'm gonna go right back down into the hole. I'm gonna make a loop and not pull it all the way through. Run the needle through the loop, pulling it kind of snug like that. And then I'm gonna put the needle right back down next to this hole on the outside of the loop so it kind of locks it in. And then I'm gonna come out the bottom under the chin. Like that. I'm gonna make one knot. And I'm gonna pull it taut right up close to the end there. So it look like that. And then I'm just gonna sink that knot right back down into the same hole or right next to it, and then come out somewhere underneath the chin. So it's kind of hidden. You can gently, very gently pop the knot through and it'll get trapped on this side. For extra precaution, you can go do it one more time. So I'm gonna go back to the same exact hole where the thread's coming out of. And then come out some other side, just so that thread's really trapped in there. That popped right through. Then you just trim and it'll hide in the head. Sometimes when you're tugging a lot, it'll kind of tighten up the threads. You can see this one's a little bit more tense. So I'm just gonna gently slide a needle and loosen it up just a little bit. And that's pretty much it. Okay, last but not least, I'm finishing up with just adding a little bit of blush to the cheeks and the ears. And this one is all set to go. I managed to take some little final result video footage in the last sliver of sunlight that I had. And I don't know, I really love the button jointing, but then I also really like the floppy cotter pin jointed legs. And another thing I prefer is the embroidered eyes versus the plastic safety eyes. But I don't know, which one do you prefer? Do you have a preference? But anyways, to each their own. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and can make this for a loved one. And if not, I hope it inspires you to make your own little creation with textures and fabrics and colors that you like. The possibilities are endless, and that's why I love doing this. So I hope that you got some inspiration out of it. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Wear my glasses?
Sure. How do I look?
The beautiful.
Nice.
Bunch of toys.
Cool. Oh, my glasses fell off.
Oops. That's my glasses.
Oh, your glasses fell off my head. Say bye.
Bye.
See you later.
See you later. Hey, wait. You got your horse's friend.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll see you later.
You're welcome.
Oh.
Bye.
Bye.